Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel for part 2 of my review series on the invasion infiltration missions in the first Descendant after patch 1.11. On day 2 of this patch, Echo Swamp, the Chapel, and White Knight Gulch Mystery's End were the daily invasion missions on rotation. As you know, the devs have been making a ton of changes based on community feedback, and this patch is all about those quality of life improvements. If you're wondering about the multiplayer changes, those are coming in a future patch, possibly the next one. But for now, we're diving into what's new and how it feels in the game. Feedback is still important. The devs have not said they're done revamping these. They did say that they will continue to improve them until the community is satisfied. If you missed the first video where I covered the full patch notes and the buff to Haley's drop rates, go ahead and check that out. Yesterday, also, I covered Sterile Land and the Fortress. In this video, though, I'm focusing on my impressions and feedback after playing through Echo Swamp, the Chapel, and White Knight Gulch Mystery's End. Quick disclaimer, this isn't a guide, just my thoughts after playing the updated content. So let's talk about how these missions are shaping up on day 2 of patch 1.11.
Tux makes it exciting!
Let's jump into White Knight Gulch, the Mystery's End. In this area, it was way more spread out. So there was a little more navigating you had to do. The drones could float around at distances that were quite a bit far away from the pillars. In the end, it wasn't a problem. Clear the ads if you need to. I just plopped down my turret and worked my way around them. The only downside about this one is that when you do encounter the turret, if your memory slips and you need to glance back at the pillars, you're way far away from those pillars. But that's fine, honestly. I mean, unless you're speed running this thing, then I guess you're just gonna have to have solid memory. Otherwise, there's so much time in the clock. I was comfortable with having to do that. My initial first impressions were that, wow, it couldn't be this easy. And so I was sort of waiting to be surprised, and that surprise never happened as far as like tripwire and whatnot, but there really wasn't any. I can't imagine anybody describing this as difficult now. You're gonna be able to coast through it. Now, if it's your first time ever encountering this type of mechanic, then yeah, it's gonna take a minute for you to learn. And I'm not saying you're gonna run it perfectly. I even made a mistake or two as I was doing these. Overall, that was just user error. The system is majorly improved. I imagine once you understand the basic mechanics, you're not gonna have too much difficulty hitting that gold trophy. I finished these with a lot of time on the clock, and I am no master. If you play this version of the invasion before and you completed it, you're gonna notice the difference immediately when you start this. If you weren't able to complete it, you probably will now. So there were lots of changes and they were extremely noticeable. So first of all, they removed the pillars that didn't display any symbols. That just made things tremendously easier because everyone, you knew there was going to be a symbol there, and that helped you shoot more strategically. For example, if you attacked the first pillar and you revealed a symbol in the first slot, if you didn't want to go straight to the drone and instead wanted to attack another for reassurance, you know that you don't have to shoot the first location, that you can start with the second and work your way down. That all accumulates to time saved in the end. They also improved the pillars so that they're now facing towards the inside of the battle area. So if your memory slips, you can just glance, and or if you need to confirm that the drone matches, you could just glance. So that was really helpful, and I noticed that. They also simplified the design of the symbols, and that's just gonna make everything go a lot faster. The things you're gonna recognize, they're basically the same symbols that are on a PlayStation controller. So you got an X, a triangle, a circle, and a square. So quick tip, these work from top to bottom. 1 is at the top and 4 is at the bottom. Before, when it came to the symbols on the drones, they were orientated horizontally, and then they had little dots above them to let you know what their location marks were. For example, 1 dot meant they were a 1 spot, 2 dots, 3 dots, 4 dots, and that correlated with the pillars. It was really annoying. It slowed you down because it was a small detail, but now they arranged it so that it just matches the pillars. So instead of the symbols on the drones going from left to right horizontally, they're going from top to bottom, orientated vertically. Way easier. They also improved the pillars so tumors do not regenerate after they're destroyed. So if you need to confirm that you have the right drone, you don't have to go back and reshoot everything, saving you more time. They also reduced the number of hits to remove the tumors from 5 to 3. I didn't really notice that too much. So when you were confident that you have the right drone, you interact with it, a weapon is revealed, use that weapon to kill the tumors at the door to enter the next section. And I was a little worried at first burst because it just doesn't feel that powerful against those tumor eyeballs, but you have exactly enough shots to kill those. So as long as you don't miss, you should be able to one phase each one of these sections. And they increased the range and firing rate of the inversion energy emitter. Either way, I went right up to it because it's still a little uncomfortable to shoot. So what's interesting is that you get a confirmation faster now, because as soon as you hit the right drone, as soon as you interact with it, all the enemies disappear. It makes the whole thing easier because you're not taking more damage. They're not shooting at you because they disappear. I actually don't know if I like that. I like the explosion that was happening afterwards. So now the enemies aren't dying from an explosion, they're disappearing. You know, I think they could bring that back because it's not testing our builds enough. Took some damage. You are very focused on the details of what you're doing. And while you're doing that, incoming damage is happening. There's quite a bit of a jog to the final phase. So there's 3 phases all together in the final phase. This is the boss phase. On this one, they kept the map in its original orientation. They didn't reverse it, so you're not doing anything backwards. And that was a breath of fresh air. If you've done this mission several times, then you should be comfortable with all the things you have to traverse here. Basic jumps, a little bit of grappling, nothing over the top when it comes to obstacle courses. Once you get to the end fight, it's more of the same. It's a wide open room and the pillars are a lot more spread out. And they did that to make it a little bit more challenging. Also, the boss was a sniper boss. He kind of tucks away in the corner, so you have to chase him down. The pillars, the drones, they weren't tough. And there was a time where I thought I had it right and I didn't. Perhaps there were 2 drones out there with a similar orientation, so look out for that. You are moving so quickly through this, there was plenty of time to spare. The boss wasn't hard at all, as long as you have enough HP to take a little bit of his damage, so you can just face tank him and get it all out of the way. So you do have to do these twice, and the second time does get easier, but I basically achieved the same time both runs. And I got all the possible Haley parts and 2.5 million in gold on top of that. I think they need to boost the XP on these. Otherwise, I was pretty happy about the rewards and how easy it was. Yeah, is the juice worth the squeeze? Absolutely. Let's jump into Echo Swamp, the chapel.
Let's do this!
So this one is actually easier than Mystery's End. And both of these, I completed them sub 4 minutes, and they give you 7.5 minutes to complete this. Right off the bat, the good thing is that the map is forward orientated, so there's no backwards map. There is no obstacle courses on this one. That made me happy. And all the changes that I covered in the last one are also seen here. The reason why this one's a little bit easier is because the zones or the checkpoints that you're fighting in are a lot smaller. So less traveling you have to do from one pillar to the next or to go and find your drone. The downside to that is that you're a little bit more vulnerable to incoming fire or being overwhelmed. A take DPS setup like I'm running here with Jaber is definitely helpful, but it all happens really fast. The pillars are way more convenient than they were before, and none of the enemies were overwhelmingly annoying. That also made me happy. So none of those staggering robots like I experienced yesterday with Sterile Land. So let's just go ahead and jump straight to the boss fight. You've probably seen him before at a void reactor. You have to destroy the tumors to reveal the symbols and then identify the drone to get the gun, and you shoot him with the gun this time, and that's gonna break his shields. Everything was so close and convenient, and the boss is sort of sitting in the middle of all of the pillars, so everything is very at hand for you, and get right to the point, which is kill the boss. So once you get the gun, all the ads disappear. I don't know if that's a good thing. I mean, maybe the ads should stick around to protect the boss. I mean, there's no explosions, so it's not like you cleared them. I think that would be an interesting way to make this more difficult or more grand or epic of a fight. We're a long ways from epic, but if those ads were around, then there'd be a little bit more testing of your build. I didn't feel threatened at any point by this boss, really. And overall, my first impressions and final impressions were that, well, Echo Swamp was extremely easy. It was the easier one of the two, and even easier than the Fortress and Sterile Land that we did yesterday. There's plenty of time to spare, so just don't stress out. You got 7.5 minutes to get your gold trophy. And out of this, I got 5 Haley parts twice, and then 1.25 million twice. So 2.5 million in gold. Was the juice worth the squeeze? Absolutely, super simple. check it off your list. The recent balance changes to the inversions for these two missions have proven to be quite effective, maybe even a bit too effective. The upside is that achieving the maximum rewards is now well within reach for most players, ensuring accessibility for all. Compared to the more challenging Sterile Land and Fortress missions I took on yesterday, these adjustments create a nice variety in difficulty levels across the missions. It's a good balance overall, giving players a mix of both achievable and more demanding content to keep things interesting. So let me know what you think about the tuning of these two particular missions. Thank you for hanging out with me. My name is Tuxedo Bandido. That's Tito Bandido.
One and only.
And this was another episode of The First Descendant. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, like, and turn on notifications to ensure you don't miss out on the fantastic experiences waiting for you in The First Descendant. And if you like videos like this, check out the one I have recommended for you right here. If you have anything you want to see covered, be sure to let me know in the comments below. And thank you to all the channel members and donors who make everything possible. Tux Nation wouldn't be without you.
When you buy or download anything for The First Descendant, be sure to use Tux's creator code to support the channel. Easy peasy.
Follow me.